Good afternoon or good evening, everybody. Today is Earth Day, Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026. It is now 6:01 p.m. and I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Chittenden Solid Waste District. The meeting has been properly warned and the packet has been made available to all commissioners and to the public. First item on the agenda is the agenda itself. Are there any requests for changes or additions to the agenda? Let me just say I'm on Zoom, so I'm not sure I can see everybody in the meeting room. So I'll ask folks in the meeting room to help me out if somebody is raising their hand there, or if you notice somebody on Zoom that I'm not detecting. But hearing no requests for changes to the agenda, it will be followed as presented in the packet. Next item on the agenda, item number 2, is the public comment period. Are there any members of the public present in the CSWD meeting room via phone or via Zoom who wish to address the Board of Commissioners?
There are no members of the public in attendance.
Very good. Then I will close the public comment period and we'll move on to item number 3, which is the consent agenda, consisting of the minutes of the March 25th, 2026 board meeting, standard program update reports, the finance reports, executive director update, and the delegation of authority resolution that was adopted at our meeting on January 28th and is just provided in the board packet as an official document for all commissioners who wish to have a copy. Are there any requests to remove an item from the consent agenda for further discussion? Hearing none, we will accept the consent agenda as presented in the board packet. And we're now ready to move on to item number 4, which is an executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate and legal matters. And a link has been sent out by the executive director to all commissioners. And I believe we will use that link. Sarah, is that correct for this meeting?
Yes.
I feel better if we did use that link. So do we have a motion to read into the record to enter into executive session?
So moved, Essex.
Well, let's have the language of the executive.
Motion that the Board of Commissioners of the Chittenden Solid Waste District go into executive session to discuss real estate negotiations where premature general public knowledge would clearly place the district, its member municipalities, and other public bodies or persons involved at a substantial disadvantage, and to permit authorized staff and other invited interested parties to be present for this session.
So moved, Essex.
Second, South Burlington.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate and legal matters. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? We will now enter into executive session using the link that Sarah, the executive director, had emailed out to you earlier today. So we'll see you over there in that link. Now back in public session. There was a requested action to come out of our executive session. Do we have a language that could be read into the record?
Sure.
For an act, for a motion?
Yep. The Board of Commissioners for the Chittenden Solid Waste District authorizes the executive director to enter into negotiations towards a purchase and sale agreement for the property at 195 Flynn Avenue, Burlington.
So moved, Essex.
Second, South Burlington.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we authorize the executive director to enter negotiations for the sale of property at 195 Flynn Avenue. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries and the executive director is hereby authorized. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are now ready to move on to item number 5, which is the FY2027 budget. And I'll again turn it over to Sarah and staff.
Great. Thank you. And great. Amy's going to pull up the presentation.
Where is it?
There
Can
you
you
go.
see?
Is everyone seeing the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right. So the.
Where'd it go?
All right, great, thanks. So the official budget packet does start on page 31 of the PDF in the file folder. There is a letter just ahead of that, I think on page 29, that it should be part of the packet. So this year's budget is a little bit different than the past couple of years, in that we did need to do some significant revisions to the budget that we had initially shared with both the public back in November and then in January, and that the Finance Committee reviewed in February. We made some significant revisions to that budget proposal in order to try to preserve cash so that we could make headway towards making up the difference in the fraudulently stolen money from about a month and a half ago. So my budget managers and I went through the process, and I do want to commend the budget managers for taking a very hard look at what had been their proposed budget for 27 and making some significant revisions and some significant cuts. So Amy, if you could go forward for the next one here. And this, we don't need a reminder of our mission statement, but I always like to include our mission statement in every budget session that I do, mostly for the public, but also to really remind us of why we are doing what we're doing, and that we are here for an excellent purpose. Next, please. So the financials are essentially presented through these two mechanisms, an income statement and a balance sheet. And this is what you see in your packet every month. And I think it's probably a good idea, John, to maybe do a mini training maybe in June with the new composition of the board, just as a general review of how to read the documents in the packet.
For
So
sure.
this is what they essentially are comprised of. Next, please. So for the fiscal 27 revised budget, we are anticipating revenue at just under 19.5 million. The cost of sales, that is related mostly to the compost facility, but also to the paint program. So those are things so for local color, that would be the cost of, literally the paint buckets. It's part of the cost to create the product that we then sell. So when we subtract out the cost of goods sold, cost of sales, the gross profit is just over 19.2 million. We have, and that is a reflection of both of also a revision of our revenue estimates. So not only did we look at our expenses to cut, we also looked at the revision of the revenue. Total expenses after revisions are just over 16 million. So the income before the transfers to the reserves and after depreciation is just over $2.2 million. So that is the result of, again, of the cuts and of the anticipated budgeted additional revenue. Next, please. And this is just a very quick comparison to the adopted budget for this current year and the proposed budget. And again, you can see there's quite a big swing. The expenses are relatively flat, and again, that is a great testament to the budget managers. And when I talk about the revisions that are made to the expenses, we very specifically made sure that none of the cuts had anything to do with safety, with our basic services. So we have not proposed cutting any services. We are keeping our DOCs open, the office open. All of our facilities are going to be functioning as they normally would. So that does not relate to anything kind of customer facing. So our residents and businesses we will not skip a beat, and they will not notice any changes to services. Next, please. So getting into just some of the different categories, we had operations administration. This is just going to describe kind of what the sections of the budget are and what they mean. Ops administration was a relatively new program we added maybe a couple of years ago. It's not a program, but it's just a way to designate where certain things live. And this is basically where the administration of the operations is accounted for. Next, please. So this is the current recycling facility. So this is not the new facility. This is the one that is in existence today. This will be, I'm gonna knock on some wood here, the final year of the current contract iteration for the existing facility. So we are expecting that we will be operational in the new building certainly by the end of next fiscal year, this upcoming fiscal year. So this should be the final year of the current contract term with Casella. But as such, there will be a fee increase, the processing fee. It increases by the cost of living adjustment. So right now that's around 3%, but that will be determined in December. And it goes according to the same Northeast Urban Class BC that we use for our COLA increases. So we're putting that in as 3%. The tip fee will increase to $100 a ton. It actually already has. That took effect on April 1, so that will be in effect for July 1. And we are conservatively budgeting our average commodity rate, the ACR, which is the value of the recycling that is sorted and sold out of the MRF. This current year budget, 26, I believe it was at $95 or $97 a ton. We are ratcheting that back significantly based on actuals and the trends throughout this particular fiscal year. It's always difficult to budget this number because we are budgeting so far in advance. But we want to be very, very conservative. I feel like this is a decent number, but it does represent quite a decrease in the revenue from MRF sales. Next. The hazardous waste depot. This is the expenses are slightly down this year, and we have having a retirement, but other expenses are down slightly. And again, when we were looking at the revisions to the budget managers looked at actuals for this year and tried to hone very close to those numbers for this next year. And this is a facility that does receive a subsidy. The organics recycling facility, we are increasing the tip fee from to $77 a ton on July 1. The cost of goods sold did decrease slightly. And this year we are anticipating a subsidy of about $165,000, but that is again dependent on additional material coming in and also on the sale of our products. So that could be, I expect that will be lower. That's also a conservative number. Next, please. Drop-off centers. So we are going to implement a facility fee of $1 per trip, and that is to generate income for the capital reserve. And we had a couple of conversations at the board level, and the executive board level, and the finance committee level about this. And we did conduct a survey of our drop-off center customers over the course of about 3 weeks, 18 days or so in March. And it was just about 50-50, whether folks had a preference for $1 per trip or $1 per bag. And I do explain some of the rationale in the memo, but essentially staff felt that the more equitable solution was $1 per trip versus $1 per bag, in recognition of our customers that do generate multiple bags of trash in a visit. So this would capture the folks who are coming in every few months, maybe once a year, who might have a bulky item or a couch or something or some other something. There are going to be some exceptions, and I list the exceptions in the memo. Specifically, they are for materials that are subject to an extended producer responsibility law and textiles. So we want to, make sure that we're continuing to encourage the textiles coming in because they are a major contributor to the landfill. And they do have some value and we want to keep that material out. So to further incentivize bringing in textiles without the dollar per trip fee. Next, please. Maintenance and roll-off. Again, so there's there was a right sizing of the income from the organics hauling program. I think we had overestimated last year, so this is a right-sized expectation. And this has always been an operational program that receives a subsidy. And now onto the wages and benefits. So this is just a slight increase over last year, just about maybe just under 2.5%. Our FTEs are again just basically the same, maybe just half an FTE more. And the COLA is relatively stable from last year as well. Biosolids, this is a program that we operate on behalf of a certain number of our members. And basically we are a contract manager for the municipalities that participate in the biosolids program. So this is money in, money out, and there's a small fee that we receive for administration, but essentially it's a pass-through. Next, please. Closed landfill. So the expenses this year are down by about 50%, maybe a little bit less than 50%. We did quite a bit of work in this current fiscal year with regards to some engineering work and just kind of getting some consultants in to help us chart a path forward to final, not closure. What's the word, Josh? It's
Custodial care.
Custodial care, thank you. And so we're working on that. The income is from investments. So this is all from, there's the closed landfill reserve, and that is a restricted fund. That money in that particular reserve fund can only be used for the closed landfill purposes. Next, please. And the administrative departments, so the administrative departments is basically everything that is not an operation. This is again the comparison from this year to this current fiscal year to next fiscal year. And I also, I want to point out the expenses. They're slightly lower. Oh, I missed that second parentheses there. So that is again a nod to the budget managers at taking a hard look at our expenses and reining those in. So the additional revenue from the solid waste management fee, that is that balance there at the bottom, the 1.9, and that goes again into the reserve, which will be utilized for the MRF. Next, please. Solid waste management fee, the budget figure is reflecting an increase from $40 a ton to $41.92, and this was the first year of using the new mechanism that was approved by the board last year. Again, looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics COLA, and in this case, it was the garbage and trash index that is used to generate that figure. So that will take effect July 1. And this is, again, just this which departments make up the administrative department. And so the change to the administrative department is we are moving compliance out of administration and into outreach and communication. Next, please. Mentioning again, we are merging with outreach and education. We are, I'm not sure if there's a slight increase in legal services, maybe a little bit for additional potential enforcement actions, but relatively stable. Next, please. Finance, the increase to interest revenue, which is the revision, 200,000, that was just adding it back in. We had forgotten to add it to the original proposed budget, so that was just writing that minor error. Next, please. And then outreach and communications. So outreach and education is merging with compliance and safety. And so I believe I mentioned this in my update. So it will be I forget the name of it now, Compliance, Outreach and Safety, I think is the
Waste
name.
reduction.
And waste reduction. It's a very long name, and so we may be taking a look at that. It's a lot to fit on a business card. So Jody Catania will be managing the new combined outreach, education, compliance, and safety program. And communications is merging with marketing, and Beth Parent is going to be managing the communications and marketing program. Next, please. Capital projection, it is all about the MRF. There's going to be a few repairs that are necessary at the maintenance facility and a handful of small other capital projects, but it really is about the new MRF. And that is the end of that presentation. There is, again, a bit of a longer memo, a narrative in the packet. And then you have all your detail. So the detail that was included was to showcase the cuts and the revisions that were made. And it is a lot there. So John and I and Josh and Dan and Joey's on the line, Brian's on the line. We are all able to answer questions that you may have.
Thank you, Sari. So we're opening it up for then questions by commissioners at this point. And I see that Betsy's hand is up first, so go ahead, Betsy.
Thank you, Paul. So thank you for the great detailed information in the meeting packet. It was very helpful to, it was almost like being in the room with you, so thank you. So I just had one thing that I'm a little confused about, and I'm sure it's me. In John's memo on page 3, he summarizes and does a cumulative impact list. So it said, the key revision, so that's your plus 465,000. So I understand that. The next one is baseline revisions, and that adds 690,000. But when I look at page 2, baseline revisions is $645,000.
I can speak to that, Betsy.
Okay.
There's typos in this area. So some of the numbers didn't get revised appropriately as we made changes to the way we were presenting that. The 690 is in fact the total. It includes the 45,000 from further consideration. It really should read baseline revisions add 645 to net income and lower cash expenditure. Cumulative impact is $1,109,000. Then we move down to CapEx saves 475. The total there is $1,585,000. The $1,630,000 is all in, including the for further consideration.
Okay, yeah, so it looked like you counted the 45,000 twice, so, okay.
That's my typo, for sure.
Okay, thank you. And then I was just curious, management does not recommend the for further consideration revisions. And I was just, I know what the words wellness benefits mean, and I know what incentive grant means, but I don't know, like, what does that mean to you all? Like, what are those programs?
I can
Do you want to speak to wellness?
Sure. The wellness program is available for CSWD staff. It's sort of a team motivation type thing where we have different activities and points tracker for participation in those activities. We do financial training, we have a softball team, we do those types of things. And so when people participate in some of the healthy offerings that we have, they have the opportunity to do that at no charge for those additional things. So the district covers those.
Okay.
And the incentive grants are, it's a program we've had in place for a long, long time. And it lives in the Outreach and Communications, Outreach and Education Department. And it is geared towards businesses to help them, maybe purchase bins or to do different programs. And we had, again, I had asked for folks to put everything on the table, And the Finance Committee thought that we do want to continue to try to incentivize businesses, especially smaller businesses, to be able to accomplish some of the goals that we all have for them. So, and Joey was also Joey Catania was very vocal about wanting to make sure that we continue to kind of push those programs and give some folks some assistance because, for example, the Champlain Valley Expo was a recipient of one of the incentive grant awards, and they bought specialized covers for their bins that helped folks to understand, only recycling goes in here, and it's not a free-for-all. And that has dramatically improved their program. So it's things like that we want to continue to encourage. And so the Finance Committee agreed that we should keep those in.
Thank you.
I want to ask a point of clarification on that 45,000. So that's not incorporated into the presentation we just saw, say with the PowerPoint presentation. It's you had taken the advice of the Finance Committee and not adopt that $45,000 worth of cuts.
Correct.
Paul, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Leslie.
So just for clarity, should we understand that this budget does not anticipate the MRF being operational within the 27 fiscal year?
It does. And Josh and I talked about how to capture that. But likely would be the fourth quarter. So do you want to kind of explain
I think where we struggled was we still have some pretty significant outstanding questions towards our respondents to both contracts, the operating and the marketing contracts. And so without feeling like we're in a good position to speculate as to what the revenue or expenditures would look like for those contracts, we pretty much held status quo from year over year because we didn't have a great feeling for what those are going to look like. There's just too much sort of outstanding questions that we have for those two, for the respondents that we have.
And for just one quarter, we thought that it likely it could be a wash for that one quarter.
Part of the complicating factors is that some of the respondents responded to both contracts and have coupled those responses together.
No, I can understand completely why trying to figure out both revenue and expenses would be very, very challenging.
Yeah.
I just wanted some clarity, particularly because my understanding is that we expect the unit, I don't know if I'm using the words correctly, the unit revenues to be better because of lesser contamination as a result of using the new equipment. So there must be something in the revenue projections that captures that possibility or not. I mean, it's just not.
It's not, the assumption is that when the new MRF comes online, it's operating exactly as the existing MRF is.
For that final
For
quarter.
that quarter, right, for that last quarter in 27. So
those gains won't be realized until the following
28.
fiscal year. Okay, I just wanted to understand that. And then a very small question, on the second page, you say that the allocation for commercial insurance was increased, related to increased coverage. What is the increased coverage?
Amy can talk to that.
Yeah, so we are going out to bid for increasing coverage. It might be cyber coverage. It could be just revisiting options of the coverage through the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And so we put money in that in case we decide to go a different route and it costs more than what we currently do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you haven't determined what the coverages might be or?
Right, just based on conversation with our attorney for some of the things that issues that we've come up with or had. plan on addressing those in the next fiscal year.
Okay, and I'm sorry, but one last question. So this budget still has a subsidy for the organics recycling. How does the anticipated subsidy for fiscal '27 compared to the likely actual subsidy for fiscal '26?
That's a great question. John, have you done those projections yet through, at least through the third quarter? Or Dan, do you have a sense for, I mean, you're just entering into your sales
Yeah,
season
so
now,
tricky
so.
thing with compost, both projecting the future fiscal year and wrapping up the current one is that all the sales happen in the last quarter.
I know.
So there's a lot of guesswork involved in both directions, but we're looking real good for this. Barring some major geopolitical something, which happens every few days, or an economic downturn, which who knows, or a month of rain, I think we're gonna be in real good shape for the current fiscal year, and we'll probably better our projected subsidy, but
I don't have
No,
a
my
projection.
question is, the subsidy that's incorporated in the fiscal '27, is that greater or lesser than the current year? That's my
The
question.
budgeted subsidy, you mean, for
Yes, for
26?
fiscal '27.
Hang on a
I believe
second.
it's less than budget, it's gonna be, the FY27 budget is likely more than actual '26.
I think the budgeted subsidy was about 185 for
Yeah, that sounds
this
about
year.
right.
So I think it's just a little bit lower
Okay.
than budget.
And then there are a couple of references, and there've been references in previous memos about this new product using yard waste. Is that incorporated in here, or is that just too much of an unknown?
It's still a little bit of an unknown, we made a little bit of it this current year, but we're still developing that market, we have samples out in the labs now, so in order to project actual numbers around it, I think it would be very premature,
But it's not in this,
it's not.
it's not in the budget.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thank you for those questions, Leslie. Other questions or discussion on the proposed FY27 budget?
Paul has a question?
Not really a question, I just a comment, and certainly Lauren or Rick could comment, but Finance Committee, I know when I first saw the revised budget, I was quite pleasantly surprised that they were able to find so much savings and or increased income to help us, meet the new MRF expenses. It gets us a long way there, and so, I'm fully supportive of, I think the Finance Committee was fully supportive of this new budget. And but Lauren, I think you wanted to say something?
Yeah, to echo that, thank you to the budget managers for taking a hard look at things. And I think also the Finance Committee felt it was important that the entire board and public see the different options that were put in front of us. So I think as much as folks want to consider all options, like those are still, I think, available. I just wanted to mention that too. Like, I think we had an option to go forward with just the revised option, and we wanted to provide you all with the transparency of all of the options.
And the other thing, you did touch on it briefly, but there is a fair amount of deferred maintenance as well as deferred capital purchases,
That is true.
which will have to be caught up in the future.
Yes.
But Assembly staff was confident that it would be manageable for this
Yes.
coming fiscal year.
And that was, another reference, specifically to safety.
Yes.
Right, so Josh and his team and Brian and his team really, thought hard and long about certain equipment, some rolling stock, some maintenance that we were looking at a couple of drop-off centers, and are confident that several can be pushed off a couple of years, and a few really should only be pushed off 1 year. So we'll be again monitoring those over the next 6 months to 8 months just in time for the next budget, to be able to understand better if there's additional deferrals, or if we're on track with just a 1 to 2 year. I don't think we would need to defer beyond 3. So I'm looking at maybe a 2-year deferral for some of this, and it's really preventative maintenance on some of the facilities. And again, our maintenance team does such a great job at taking care of the vehicles that, we're confident that everything that we have now as rolling stock is in excellent shape. So, it was related to safety, but, and not just safety for our employees, but also to make sure that all our facilities are safe. So anything that does pop up during the year, we obviously will address it. We're not going to defer something if there's an issue, but they felt confident with a 1 to 2 year for most of these items.
Paul, Bruce, I thought of another question. I'm very sorry.
Go ahead.
You mentioned in this memo, and by the way, I want to also add my compliments on the effort to find a way to really squeeze the lemon here. But there were several references to the possibility of some kind of short-term bridge loan.
Yeah.
To help the cash flow. And I didn't know whether that was intended for fiscal 26 or fiscal 27, and if the latter, where is it in the budget?
It would be for 27 into 28. And John and Josh and I are evaluating that need right now. So we will be coming to the board with that proposal in May for authorization for bridge loan. And at that point, we will have, as Josh said, the information for the MRF operating costs. So we'll also have that detail as well. And we'll have a more finalized version of exactly what the remaining expenses are on the building project. So yes, it's basically, our hope is that the board will authorize us to apply for the loan in fiscal 27, and then for a 12-month period to go into 28 for repayment.
Thank you.
Sarah, in the packet, there is the board action requested authorize the executive director to act. Do you have?
That was for that was for the executive session, and I realized that I did not grab Lauren, did you have a question?
I do have a question, yeah.
Sorry.
So there's a schedule of program tipping fees, and some items have never had a charge before and now do. Can you remind me what is the public notification period ahead of that change?
For just for general fees?
So for example, the lead acid batteries and propane cylinders. My question is those were new to me, so I'm thinking that will also be new to others when they show up to the drop-off centers.
Yeah.
So how much time ahead of it being implemented do they get notified?
Yeah, there's no set timeframe, but we in practice like to provide at least 2 months, longer if we can, because that 2 months tends to capture folks who only come in once a month, if they're coming in on the off week. And then if we can do 3 months, kind of like now, then that tends to capture folks who might come in again periodically with something like a lead acid battery who may not be a regular customer. But there's nothing that says you must provide X number of days or weeks or months. But this also is notification, kind of in our budget process. So this goes to the cities and towns, so they'll have it in May, and then that is also hopefully on their websites, and so there's also public notification of that as well.
Okay.
So and then just some further clarification, the propane tanks, the books, and the other one that you mentioned was lead acid batteries. Those are already in effect. The new ones for July 1st will be yard waste, leaf and yard waste, and then also the facility fee that was already discussed. So those are really the two new ones, and then we'll get that notification out as shortly as possible after this discussion. get those posted. for
And
July 1st.
tires, the increase in tires, is that already implemented? Do you know? It's the up to
I think so.
20-inch bike
Yes.
tires and bike tires.
Brian's
What's the
on,
change?
Brian can.
Yes, that was started at the same time as the other ones that you just mentioned were, and it's only one type of tire, and we realized with the expense that we were incurring in that program, we really did need to raise it just to make sure that we were covering our costs.
Okay, thank you. Those are things that like I could see people asking
Yeah.
commissioners, so it's
Yeah.
helpful to get the
And
clarification.
I'll also add that we do put a sign right on the booth window, so when people roll up, we have staff bring it up with them because there's no other people than staff that want to make sure that the public and our customers know about the changes. So the number of complaints is limited. So.
Awesome, yeah, and the staff does a great job of educating the public, as we've heard, so thank you.
Thanks very much.
So Sarah, get back to it, action requested at this point.
Yes, I am looking for, I was looking for the language from last year, and it's not the language I wanted. So it's, so in reality, what happens is the board authorizes the budget to be transmitted to your member towns and cities for their approval. So you are essentially authorizing the release of the budget to everyone, to our members. So let's see. That is, yes. Amy, I'm looking at last year's language and it's not there either. I feel like we do this every year.
You were, well, I mean, have we used in the past that the board adopts the budget and then forwards it to the town for approval, towns for approval, or is that not correct?
Well, because the budget is officially adopted when 10 of the member cities and towns
Okay,
approve it.
okay,
So technically, no.
okay.
Betsy does have her hand up.
It
on her
just-
sheet.
Betsy, you have a
Betsy, go
clarifying
ahead.
comment?
Yeah, so Lauren mentioned, and she's right, that they kind of, the finance committee sort of laid out and staff kind of all the different options. Like there's 4. Are what we're gonna vote on, is it the one option 3 that excludes the $45,000 for further consideration cuts? Or like, what are we voting on exactly?
So,
Question.
so essentially what was presented in the PowerPoint, so those totals there. And so it does end up being the budget inclusive of the reductions, but not the 45,000. So it's the
585.
So 1.585.
1.585, which is
That's
the
total.
reductions. Right, so you're voting on a budget of, stand by, 19, of revenue of 19,451,432 and expenses of 16,090,984. So revenue of just over 19 million, total expense just over 16 million.
And all we're voting on is to release it to the towns
Correct.
for their approval.
Correct.
And are you going to put the PowerPoint presentation in the meeting packet so we have it, since we didn't have it earlier?
Into this meeting packet or into the one that goes to the cities and towns?
I mean, I would have liked to have seen it before the meeting, but
So
Well, this is the
the,
packet. The PowerPoint that you presented is the packet that you'll be presenting to the boards and towns. Is that correct, Sarah?
well, it's similar. I add things into that PowerPoint because we add a couple of slides on where we generate our revenue from, and I usually do a couple of pie charts that shows the distribution of the revenue and the expenses, so it's a bit enhanced and it doesn't have all of this detail. So I can certainly send this PowerPoint around, but it will not be the same PowerPoint that I present to the towns, because that one is more tailored to how people understand where the revenue and the expenses are, how they're generated.
Yeah, I just wanted to include it in my folder for today's meeting.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
We post it. on
So
the
this will be
website.
posted on the CSWD website.
Thank
So
you.
yes.
But we're still trying to nail down the language for a motion, I believe.
Let's see.
Last year's wording just said to approve the budget, but it is to approve the budget to go out to the cities and towns
Right, it's
for
to-
their approval.
Correct, so it's to authorize, and maybe it's the 24, 20, I thought we had good language somewhere. It's to, what did you say it, Alan?
We're approving the release of the budget as proposed to the towns for their approval.
Except
Towns and
it
cities.
has to reference the revised budget,
Yeah, so approving release
not
of
the February budget,
correct, correct.
Budget that
but
was
the budget
presented.
as
presented this
presented
evening.
today.
Revised
Yeah.
fiscal 2027
Get the language.
budget as presented.
It's presented on April 22nd, maybe.
Okay, approving release of the revised fiscal 27 budget as presented on April 22nd to the district member municipalities for their approval. All right, so let me read this and see what you think. Motion approving the release of the revised fiscal 2027 budget as presented on April 22nd to the district's member municipalities for their approval.
The syntax is wrong,
Okay,
because I'd have to, you need
Maybe
to
release-
reverse the word order, I'm sorry, because it makes it sound like it's been presented to the municipalities on the 22nd.
gotcha.
Motion.
Motion approving
22nd?
the release, let's see, motion approving, okay.
Release of the FY27 budget as presented, the motion to approve release the revised FY27 budget as presented to the board on April 22nd to the towns for their approval.
That seems smart.
Does that pass?
Question.
Yes.
Is there a way that we can like wordsmith this offline and then send it to board members to like review and quickly approve? Yeah.
You mean like take a break?
It seems like that might
I
violate
would-
the open meeting law. I mean.
I just would
if-
appreciate
if
being able to
there is a
read it.
change in wordsmithing between now and the time everyone votes, then one could argue that.
The
that
board
was-
couldn't vote on the wordsmithing, you have to vote on the motion.
Right.
So,
I think you've got to have
So-
a motion.
Bryn, you have an observation on this?
Might I propose a 3 to 5 minute recess?
Yeah.
and then I'll craft some language?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll declare a 5-minute recess to allow the executive director to work on the language of the motion.
Let me come help you, because I created this mess.
I think one could argue.
Let
you don't
me
need to
see
put
what you
in-
have.
so let me type it out so you can see it better.
I think you could argue you don't need to put in the word revised because
Can you mute it?
it was never adopted the first pass, so this is really
In the room so they're not hearing all of our sausage making?
as presented
So can you unmute for the meeting room?
It's more mature.
Especially yard-based, yeah.
So in ours.
I meant the food though.
Unmuted.
It's all dependent on what Casella decides on a given year, month, week.
Well,
Or do we have the language?
So the craft language reads, motion to authorize the transmittal of the revised fiscal 2027 budget, comma, as presented to the Board of Commissioners on April 22nd, comma, to the district's member municipalities for their approval.
So move, South Burlington.
Second, Jericho.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to release the revised 27 budget to the towns of the Chittenden Solid Waste District. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Beautiful motion.
Thanks.
you're
Hearing
marked
no-
up for next year.
Hearing no further discussion, I think we're ready for the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? The motion carries, and the release is now authorized.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
patience. We're now on to item number 6 on the agenda, other business. Is there any other business to bring before the board this evening?
Well, I just wanted to mention, kind of connected to the budget, that Amy is working on the schedule for the presentations and will send that to everyone. And so when that is finalized, if we probably have
Yeah.
finalized.
I'm hoping by Friday,
Yep,
but
so
I can
then,
certainly send to the towns that are
or
2 weeks
up
from-
first,
yeah.
yeah. So we will send you that information, and that includes obviously the date and the time for the budget presentation. And I normally attend via the link, Zoom or Teams, except for Colchester. I have to go in person to Colchester, so if you happen to be on the same night as Colchester, you will also get me in person. And so you're more than welcome to attend. It's always great to have the commissioner there, and you can attend in person or not. But if you're unable to make it, that's also okay as well. So that will be forthcoming, so look for that information.
Can you send us the presentation when it's ready that you
Yes.
plan to put towards the select
Yep,
board?
so included in the information that Amy sends is the packet that goes to your town clerks.
Perfect.
So it'll all be
Thank
in
you.
there. Yes, I'll make sure the PowerPoint is included in that as well.
Okay, great.
Great. Well, I just want to compliment well, certainly the board for tonight's meeting, but also the maker of this agenda. The other business was scheduled for 7:40. It's now 7:39. Great job.
So, on that one,
I think we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Essex.
Second, South Burlington.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I declare it unanimous. We have adjourned. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Have
Have a good
a good
evening.
night.